And some of the stuff I heard when I was watching this game, wow, like parents have got to reflect on what comes out of their mouths. They've got to reflect on the behaviour that they're showing on the touchline, not make it all about the football club's fault. I've spoken quite a lot about what I think clubs could do better at, but there's a responsibility on the parents as well to try and rein it in.
Welcome to Behind the Boots, and this is the podcast where we have a unique opportunity and rare opportunity to explore youth football from a parent perspective.
So today we are beyond delighted to welcome Troy Townsend. Welcome, Troy.
Hello. I've got to admit, this is an honour for me to even be thought about to come on the pod. So yeah, I'm very blessed, and hopefully I give the listeners what they want.
Listen, you were one of our number one targets, Troy. Manifested you here today.
I'm honoured. Amazing.
Oh, well, Troy is a parent to 5 children, and we've just found out, even though he does not look like it, he's got 5 grandkids too.
I have indeed.
Amazing. And so one of whom is Andros, who is currently playing in the Premier League at Everton. And also, Troy, you were a youth player yourself, were you, at Millwall?
Oh, yeah, I was.
Not so long ago.
It was a very long time ago, by the way, and Crystal Palace. So I had some time at Millwall. I had some time at Crystal Palace. Just very quickly, football was the only thing that I ever knew. It was, and I don't even know where it come from, because my dad is not really a football-y type person. It goes with the wind, my dad, so he can support anybody on any given day, to be totally honest. My brother, yeah, and well, got to non-league stage, but I don't know where it came from. I don't remember a lot of my childhood, to be totally honest. It's a bit of a blur. Dad left home early. When I played football, I was just playing football for fun, more to the point, but it seemed like I was quite good at it. I remember I used to have to go Sunday school. There was a church at the bottom of my road, and mum got us dressed up to the nines, and Sunday school every Sunday. But I was like the captain of my school team, and we won the league for the very first time. I had no one to share that with, almost, and I remember my mum just being disinterested in anything that I was doing in regards to football. And then my friends were playing for this Sunday league team. I'd never played Sunday league. I'd only played for the school when I was about 12 years of age, I think, 12, 13. And they said, why don't you come and play? And I'm thinking to myself, I'd love to, but I know my mum is not going to let me out of Sunday school.
No.
And you know how I got out? And I got out by being a little bit of a rebel, to be totally honest. One day, she called up and said, like, are you two ready? Me and my brother's 5 years older than me. And I wasn't going, but I just didn't know how to tell mum. And then she came up and she looked at me. I bleep out some of the words that she said, but it's like, where do you think that you're going? And I said, Mum, I'm going to play football. She said, what? I said, I'm going to. Now, my brother's looking at me, because I know my brother wanted to play football too, yeah, but didn't have the audacity to even dare foot on the tracks. And you know what? She said a few other choice words, which again I won't repeat. And then she walked down the stairs, and I heard the door slam. And I was like, yes, that wasn't too hard.
You thought you got away with it?
And then my Sunday league manager, who I didn't know how I was going to introduce him to my mum, by the way, because I think she would have beaten him up at the time. He came, and she wasn't there. Like I said, she'd already walked down the road to the church. So that was my kind of opening to playing football. But my mum was never invested in it, So I was fortunate that very quickly I was a centre forward. I like to think that, goals was part of my trade. All kinds of goals, and Mac, who was my Sunday league manager, absolutely loved me. And I was playing with my friends. So actually we were transferring what we were doing in school into a Sunday league side with a few additions. And then And then there's like these whispers and rumors, as you'll both know, oh, this club, this club, this club. And I've got no one to share that with. So Mac is almost like my adopted football parent, he's my coach, but he's my adopted football parent. And then the team that he created, we were such a great side with the blandest football kit in the world, by the way, but that didn't matter back then. He started to talk about this team called Beaumont Football Club. And you mentioned Beaumont Football Club in the area that I was brought up in, and everyone knew that they were the best thing around. And so I played in this 5-a-side tournament. The manager's there. He's really like this kid. We're going to talk to Mac. I said, I think you should go. I said, Mac, you're pushing me out the door kind of thing. Like, he went, no, but your opportunities will be better there. And the minute I went to Beaumont, and I'll be honest with you, my teammates at Beaumont, my centre forward partner was Teddy Sheringham. Two players that you should know being Arsenal fanatics, Martin Hayes and Jimmy Carter, were either side on the wings.
Wow.
Perry Suckling was the goalkeeper who had a great career.
Is this a Sunday League team?
This is a Sunday League team. What
are we playing, you lot?
We were, no, Kat, seriously, we were unbelievable. We were and I was quite fortunate. To be in this situation after not many years of playing football, at a competitive level, and being around that. They were just names to me, but they were good names,
Amazing.
And then very quickly, they had a connect with Millwall and Crystal Palace, and I went to Millwall, and I said, look, there's a game against Aston Villa on, I don't know, Tuesday night, and we want you to play. So I'm bursting all over the place. I play. This is where people are going to realise my age, because I can't remember. I'm sure I scored, but anyway, the thing I do remember.
We'll go with that.
From just inside the halfway line, and hit this, and flew straight past me. I was about 20 yards out. That's how hard I hit the ball.
Wow.
But afterwards, everyone was talking about me. That lad, what's his name? And honestly, I felt so blessed. In a short space of time, people were looking at me, judging me. And I remember going to Mac, who his office was around the corner from my house. On the way home, I'd always pass it and see if Mac's in. And obviously this day I'd gone past because Mac, what's the feedback? What are people saying about me? And Mac just produced a bit of paper that had Millwall, Crystal Palace, Tottenham, Arsenal, Queen's Park Rangers. Wow. Everyone was there last night, Troy, and everyone liked you. I was buzzing. So I said, can I take the paper home? Because I want to show my mum. Right. And he went, yeah. And remember, this is the mum that I said I'm not going back to Sunday school. And yeah. So I got the paper. I took it back home. I gave it to my mum, who must have been wondering where I was last night. I didn't tell her, by the way, where I was the night before. And she screwed up the paper, threw it in the bin, and said, have you done any of your homework? And it's that period, that time that I realized, if I'm going to do this or whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to have to do it by myself. I'm not going to convince my mum. Dad's not around. Like I said, Mac was my adopted almost parent in this kind of field, Yeah. And I didn't think I needed my parents, to be totally honest, because I'm looking at myself going, well, you're the talented one. You're the one with the ability that everyone seems to want. Why do I need my parents? But actually, every game that I played in, that Teddy Sheringham, let's say, played in, at halftime, he would go to his dad. Not the coaches, he would go over to his dad. At full time, he'd go straight to his dad. Before the game, I actually thought his dad was one of the coaches in the end, because it just seemed that Teddy was spending so much time with him. And then I realized, as I got older, as you got more mature, they were talking over his game. Now, whether that's a good thing, bad thing, whatever it is, ultimately, he made it as a professional footballer and played how many games in England international and whatever else.
Can't say it went wrong for him.
Exactly, Kat, exactly. So there is a point where, and this took me many years, was to understand where your parents can be of such an influence on this journey, And Teddy's parent, there was another lad called David Jackson, who for me was one of the most talented players that we had, was an absolute talent. At the time, we just felt that our ability would listen, I don't want to speak for anybody else. My ability would take me everywhere I needed to be. And I wanted to be a professional footballer who was being watched and loved by millions on TV, and that it was my career. So when I first went to Millwall, I actually thought that was it. You've got it made, because I didn't know that you had to keep signing. I didn't know that they could release you. I didn't know that, all of this stuff that we learn as we go along. I wasn't aware of that. I just felt I was on a journey.
How old are you then?
When I played for Millwall, I was 14. Played for, and listen, when you play for any academy, you are the talk of your school. You are the person that's put on this platform, whether you like it or not. Did you know that Troy played for, and it's one of those things that you have to manage, because the expectation around you goes up how many levels, and I remember my head teacher, he was a football fanatic, and he always said to me, Townsend, you will play for West Ham one day. And I said to my friend, I don't know what he's talking about, because I'm never going to play. But he loved the fact that, he had this person in his school that, that was on a footballing journey. He'd call me up for assemblies when I was playing for the district, and that he put so much focus on the sporting development that I'd never had any negativity in my journey. The only negativity was you lose a game. Well, what happens? You try and win the next one. But I never had any negativity in my journey until the first time that I got let go. And I was quite fortunate after that, because of the connect with Crystal Palace as well. And listen, it was different. I'm going to say it's different in my day. Like, I'm a real old timer. I couldn't get to training every day, or every time we had to train. Remember, I've got no parent to take me training. We're going to South London. I didn't even know where South London was, by the way. I've got if Matt couldn't take me, I couldn't go. I didn't know how to. Some of my friends, Michael Gilks, who's a close friend as well, who came from Leighton, he also made it professional. They used to bunk trains. I didn't trust myself to bunk the train. I didn't even know where the train was going to take me. So if Matt couldn't take me, I couldn't go. And whilst clubs were flexible back then, it was also the point where it was not going more often than going. Right. And, I can fully appreciate that a football club then says, well, despite his talent, he can't get to training all the time. And that's how the Millwall kind of dream with all those young lads kind of ended.
Troy, do you think that, and we're going to come on to your support with Andros in a minute, but where you've just said that clubs get to a point, certainly in your situation, do you think that's true of today's day, that they get to a point where sometimes talent isn't all that matters? It can be the family unit, it can be your education, you're not putting enough effort, it can be sport.
Yeah. Listen, it's the whole makeup, I think, of clubs now. Is talent is one thing. Talent is obviously the thing that drives you, that identifies you to them and make them go, wow, which are within our environment. But they haven't learned about it. And they all they can see is what they see on the football field, is that this young person has unbelievable ability, and we think that we can enhance that ability to further his career, to potentially, help him become a first team player. That's got to be the goal for everybody. When they're in the environment, they learn about you as a person. So when you come into that environment, there'll be many judgment on your character. There'll be judgment on the language you use. There'll be judgment on the way you wear the club tracksuit, all this judgment. When I was growing up, all that mattered was, could he kick the ball right foot, left foot? Could he head it? And does he score goals? There was no other judgment. I could have been the biggest rogue. It didn't matter. They were going to try and enhance. There's a lot of judgment outside of the ability. And I'm not afraid to say that, because fortunately my work takes me into all those environments. And enables me to see players, talk to parents, talk to coaches, understand the dynamics within an environment. And I think clubs have to do more to support the person whilst enhancing the player.
Well, we totally agree. But we also, I suppose this project that we're doing is about hopefully being able to, a lot of people come into football, they don't know any of this stuff, right? a lot of people come into football, a bit like your mum, they don't know anything about football. And there'll be a lot of like, and especially if your child is actually sort of thriving within football now, you do need to engage. I mean,
Absolutely.
and so, yeah, part of our project is absolutely trying to sort of show that this sort of what we call inner game, this sort of your character, your attitude, who you're being is vital. And a lot of people don't know that. They totally kind of overlook that. And it's all about training and,
But also think that I don't think parents are at fault here. I think the game's at fault. When, like I said, my mum wasn't interested, okay? But if she was interested, what was out there for her? How could she become interested? How could she manage my time alongside my schooling and whatever else, or manage the next stage of what is a potential career? One of the reasons why I do so many parental sessions for clubs is because there's not enough information given to the parents about what the journey entails. Not just can you bring him 3 days a week and we'll look after him from there, and can he play in the game as well? But what does the journey entail? What impact does it have on the parent? Do they cater for the parents that are still working and have to take an hour off just to get their sons to daughters to training? Do they cater for their understanding or lack of understanding about what the environment is going to be like? Because it's an extension of their education, as far as I'm concerned. So they go to school 9 to 3:30 or what times it is now, but then they're in training from potentially 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So football environment is an educational environment as well. Now, you don't go take your child to school without knowing the ethos of that school. You don't take your child in there and go, look, go along, the teachers will look after you, don't bother me until you come out of there. No, you set certain ground rules, not only for your child, but also if you need to, you go and knock on the head teacher's door and just say, well, my child said that yesterday, and you ask and demand answers. Football's not really open to that, because when parents do that, football then starts talking about the parent behind the parent's back, by the way, which then impacts on the child, because the child is then seen in a different way, is perceived differently. And I've seen so many people who want to do the right thing for their children in that environment, but are scared to rock the boat, because rocking the boat could potentially mean that, their opportunities are taken away from them. So I think the game just needs to be more open in the way that it needs to address the situation of, you've got to work with the parents. You've got to work with the parents.
Absolutely. I mean, yesterday, Troy, Kat and I were at an event, and we were meeting parents, and we had a little stand there. And there was a dad, his son's probably about 17. And he was saying that he himself is still sort of new to the whole footballing world, and only recently become sort of interested as his son's, really passionate about it. And he was saying like in the earlier days that, there were moments where he did think that there was a safeguarding issue, and he wanted to address it with his son, and his son was like, no, don't say anything, and I was like, wow.
But that is a massive problem as well, is that whatever happens is the child then believes that if dad, mum, grandmum, granddad, brother, sister, whoever it may be, goes and talks to the club just about any issue that you may have spoken about privately at home, that's their career done. That's the impact. So who creates that mindset in their head? Where do they get to think that their parents can't talk to them, can't talk for them, in an environment where they're taking them in for them to improve, to excel, to be educated, to become a professional? So something is being spoken about in that environment that controls their mind to think, it's not going to help me.
Yeah.
What's happening from there? Where does all that come from? If we can't have an open process, and listen, there are varying levels of parents, as we know. Yeah, there's the parent that is concerned for their child. There's also the parent that's concerned for their child, but the bigger picture is that actually will impact on how we are as parents if my son doesn't make it as a career. There's quiet parents who show love, care, and attention. There's more bolshy parents who actually think that they dominate the whole situation, but yet have never kicked a ball in their life, or maybe have kicked a ball in their life but things were different back then.
Yeah.
So there is all different things that clubs have to manage, but that's why after their name is professional. You should have people in your environment that can manage any of those scenarios, and it doesn't become a threat about this child's journey.
Do you think it's realistic for clubs to be able to manage all of those different personalities and situations?
No.
Are we heading for change?
No, not all clubs have the right people in place. And if you do have the right people in place, it's left to one person to deal with all the fallout. So again, I think that football has enough money within its environment to be able to make sure that clubs are suitably kind of fit to be able to handle the different kind of players. Because then we're also talking about the different ages of the players as well. So if you talk about player care, one player care person for under 9s all the way through to under 16s. I can't count how many players that is, but count how many players that is for a player care person to basically almost look after all those players in your care. So all of a sudden the dynamics are not right anyway in regards to, I used to be a teacher, so there's a recent situation where I had to support a child and their parent in a situation within their schooling environment. And because I'm a former teacher, a PE teacher, the school said something about, we had one member of staff to 25 children on trampolines. And I went, do you think that number is, oh yeah, we are looking at our ratio of, but the situation that's happened has already happened.
Right.
And then I found out that the teacher had their back to the situation that was going on because it's one person. So listen, I think that there's many things that the football could do better, but it does need the resource to do it better. And that resource is financial and it's bodies.
Do you think there's a will? I mean, you do a lot of this kind of work. Do you feel like there's a will for clubs to enroll and engage? Because I mean, often we hear parents saying, it's toxic, and we did something the other day, didn't we? That the way they describe that environment is it's pressured, it's toxic, it's a nightmare. It's horrendous, horrible, haven't we? We've heard all the kind of. We've also heard some amazing words.
Yeah, of course,
too.
Of course.
There is this sort of slightly insecure, it's sort of set up in a slightly insecure way, isn't it? For everyone involved in some way.
Yeah, I do think there's an appetite, but is there an appetite from all 92? No, but there is an appetite from clubs for good practice, and there's also an appetite for clubs to do what they've always done. And without people, whether it's the Premier League, whether it's the Football League, going in and seeing what that practice looks like, then change will never happen because every club feels that they're doing the best to their ability.
Yeah.
I also have heard those stories. If you don't mind me plugging, I did an audio documentary only a few years ago. It was all a dream, the Football Academy journey. And the reason why I created the documentary was on the back of hearing that another child had taken their life because they weren't going to make it as a professional footballer, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be, but I wanted people to understand the environment. So first of all, it's going to be about being released, so the first thought in my head was, just about being released. What happens? Some make it, some go on, some don't, some have very good lives outside of football. So, but then I thought, no, the best thing to do would be to create an all-rounded documentary that would enable people to understand various different elements at various different stages. And I was fortunate enough to talk to parents, players, psychologists, coaching staff, governing body. I've got to admit, I was really fortunate and I did most of the interviews. So I spoke to journalists. It was just, listen, I'm going to big myself up here, but it was well put together documentary, I think.
And we'd love to get that link, by the way. And
yeah,
please.
I'll share that.
I'll share that. Yeah, great.
Three part documentary, and then a live show on TalkSport. But what it helped me do was understand from all different perspectives. So, the former professional player who's now a parent, whose child was everything that you've just said, was in a toxic environment, was being treated and belittled at every single stage, became withdrawn, wouldn't talk to anybody, got finally released, never wanted to see a football again. You know, another young person who spoke to me openly and honestly about wanting to jump in front of a train after being released, and the environment that he was released from pushed him to that point. I spoke to Eberici Eze. You know, anyone that wants to take inspiration on a journey of being released, being released, being released, being released, to eventually finding a home and excelling.
Yeah.
His story is amazing.
Incredible.
You know? But players and parents spoke about mental health. So we researched a psychologist, Tom Bates. Tom Bates has just helped Sheffield Wednesday turn around a 4-goal deficit to win 5-1 in the semi-finals of the playoffs and go and win the playoff final. His insight was unbelievable. And it just enabled me to really, you know, no one ever taught me how to do the journey of parenting. No one within this environment said, look, when you come in, it would help if you did X, it would help if you did Y, it would help if your support was very, you just had to learn on the go.
Yeah.
And I think if I had the kind of people that I interviewed around me, the positive, the negative, the inspirational, you then form your own kind of version of what all of that is to enable you to go, remember, all you're doing is going to support your son. And I say all you're doing, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're there for. But also the next part is that maybe that the journey that he's on, you can manage that journey. You can support it in a different way. You can understand the business of football. So when people are putting contracts in front of you, they don't blow your mind and you have to go, well, we need an agent and all things like that, you know. I'd love it if parents were, and some of the agent people that I know would not like me for this, but I'd love it if parents were in total control of all of that, because it's their child. It's their child. And I'm one that wasn't, by the way. So I'm talking now with more and more years of knowledge and understanding to create that. Maybe I should have looked after him myself.
So tell us about that journey that you were on with Andros. What were some significant things at different junctions, do you think, actually, yeah, I would have liked more help and support in this particular part?
Being released as an 8-year-old by some funny North London club that wear red, and telling him that this is what they told us. And I'll never forget it to the very day, because even when the scout told us, the scout that scouted him said he couldn't believe it. Wasn't going to be tall enough to play professional football. 8 years of age. Do you know what? Yeah. Well, look, what it did, it inspired him to go on and do the things that he's done. But it doesn't inspire everybody, does it? You know,
No.
we took him back to grassroots. He spent some time back in his club, Ridgeway Rovers, who are obviously a very well-known club, and a lot of the players were en route to Spurs anyway, and it enabled us to give him, you know, not to lose confidence, because remember, when people are telling you you're not good enough, the first thing they do is they knock your confidence, and all that ability that they said, oh, the reason why we want you, then gets knocked, and you're having to almost rebuild who you are. Our thing around Andros was not to make a big deal about it. You know, go back to your Sunday club, keep doing what you were doing, which was scoring goals, which was beating players, which was, you know, all the kind of positives that he had. And within weeks, Spurs were like, we'll have him. And it was the beginning of his journey. You know, I don't call Arsenal was the beginning of the journey, no doubt, but it's not. It wasn't a registered journey. It was, you know, he was in for a year and blah blah blah. Spurs was the start of his journey, and going into Spurs and being able to play and express himself in a manner that we used to see on a Sunday for his Sunday league team was everything that he needed. So that was our first kind of tricky moment, but it wasn't as tricky as maybe it has been for some in regards to that early release as an 8-year-old. But I remember again, I'm sorry to focus on Arsenal Football Club again, but I used to run my own football clubs, academies, providing young players, you know, putting them up. And I remember the very first player that left me at 9 years of age was my captain, Arsenal Mad. Arsenal mad, the family, everybody, Arsenal mad. So I remember Arsenal scouting him and him going down to Hale End and you know, him telling me that I'm getting paid. I went, what? He said, yeah, I'm getting paid. And all right, they were paying his expenses because the family wasn't well off and everything. So it's a bus ride. It's a bus ride. So he never got any physical money, but
That's what that was always saying in the playground. I'm good.
yeah, exactly. He got released a year later and he fell out of love. He developed asthma, and people can say, well, how do you know that that was direct development? He ballooned as a young person. His confidence was shot. He came back to me. His parents wouldn't come back to any of the sessions because they were so embarrassed that he hadn't made it. And his quality and ability that he had when he left had gone. And by the way, we were now dealing with what was going upstairs in his head about why the football club that he'd loved for so many years, and remember, he's only 9 years of age, but he'd seen his parents' love, had decided that he wasn't a good enough footballer. Whether they did the next bit right or wrong, I don't know. But like I said, it's another example of not even, look, we'll track you, we'll keep in touch, not even that. It was just, you're not good enough, bye-bye. And that was a massive impact for him. So we didn't want anything like that to happen to our son, who was showing great talent. Remember, just showing great talent. And also that you put the ball at his foot and he could do things that a lot of other players couldn't do. And he's only developing again. So not going OTT, but just settling him to the kind of routine that he would have of going training a couple of times a week, putting on the white shirt, going to play for that football club, who also was the club that I supported and demanded that my children support as well, because I didn't want to just be the person to have the pain. But
There a choice.
there was never going to be a choice. There was never going to, and anyone that read anywhere else, there was trouble. So
I feel like all our kids don't forgive us. They're like, you should.
Exactly. So yeah. So, you know, the next time, listen, I didn't go to a lot of Andros' early games. I was still coaching myself, and I was a non-league manager. So, you know, Andros' mum would be the person that's taking him all the time. And I also took a Sunday league team where my eldest son would come and would be playing for me. So that we had to split, obviously, in terms of one going somewhere else, and you know, all of that dynamics. But the next time I remember for Andros was actually, as a parent, and you'll probably definitely identify, I'm only interested in my son. If they win, great. If they lose, as long as he's played well. I'm only, you know, you're watching a game with 22 players or 18 players on the pitch, you're only interested in one. And so when I used to go and watch, I never watched with the parents. I always watched away because I didn't want the language, the conversation, the negativity or positivity. Yeah, just I'm not interested. So I would just.
Oh, you're one of
watch that.
those. Yeah.
Absolutely. Disconnect.
Okay.
And I remember Andros playing up for about a year and a bit, and the coach at the academy head at the time, who I won't name, because I've named him in the past, and people say, you shouldn't name them. Oh, no, you should. But I won't name this time. He said that Andros didn't have the desire to make it in the game. And it's the first time that I've ever gone in as the parent, you know, because I didn't go to the meetings and whatever. Yeah, we don't think he's got the desire. And he named a couple of former Tottenham players who, when they left Spurs, their careers crashed, by the way. And that's not about them players, but it's almost about what he saw as a player, you know what I mean, and what he didn't. I remember being in the room and I said to him, it's funny because Andros is playing left wing, he's playing a year up. And I'm saying, you've got a left back that doesn't use his left foot. And he was almost like, oh, what, this guy? I think he knows something about. Oh. And I went, well, so every time he gets the ball, he cuts inside, ignoring Andros, and plays infield. And he couldn't answer me because obviously I've watched and I've seen it. So I went, yeah, well, you know, he needs to be like a certain player. And I said, you don't watch Andros take my footballs, by the way, climb over the fence to the park and smash balls across, you know, crosses, shots, with my footballs, you know. But it's not even that. That's his desire. Or me coming home from work and seeing him in the garden, wanting to progress how his kick-ups from someone that used to do 30 to one day I walked in, he's going 510, 511, and he's using both feet. So when you talk about desire, which is your kind of understanding of desire, we have a different understanding of desire. So, what's happening here? And I remember that they put his name down to be released. And so we were like, you know what? We were already training independently. So we were out independent training with former pro Paul Elliott's academy to give him a little bit extra, because again, anyone that thinks that they're getting enough within their academy environment, I would always say to you, go and have a look and be a part of something else and see if you are getting enough within your environment. And if you are, great. If you're not, do more. So Andros used to do that. He also used to do Kova, which was all about his foot manipulation and development. And on a Friday night, it was just all skill based. And so we went to play for Paul Elliott's academy against Charlton the following day after it seemed like they were going to release him. They've made no judgment yet, and he scored 3 goals in an 8-4 defeat with loads of scouts on the touchline. And Paul saying, look, if Spurs are going to release him, you will not have a problem getting another club. It's cool. But obviously Tottenham's his team. He will be here, And a new attitude. But a new attitude at Spurs as well. They became more player focused. And you might think, what do you mean player focused? Well, I just think they were going out to play. Now they became player focused and wanted to really get into the detail of what makes up an Andros Townsend, Mason. They were really delving into these players and understanding them. And his
So do you mean, sorry, as like unique players?
Yeah, what made Andros Townsend the player that he was? Do you know what I mean? So delving into the person, understanding his ability, understanding why he doesn't like tracking back as a left winger. Do you know what I mean? Or why he takes so many shots because he's goal hungry. Or they really delved into the mechanics of the individuals. And the journey went boom. The journey just went boom from there. So I say when I say little support, of course, we're always at the games, as every parent would be. We weren't chatty parents. If I weren't at games, used to text them and just say, how well did you do today? Or what happened today? We'd have that score, 7, really good game, assisted 1, but could have got a couple. 9, scored 2, created 1 for Jonathan. You know what I mean? And that's the start of conversation as well. So when I do get home from my game, I don't have to ask him. I can just say, well done, and how did that goal go in, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So it was very good. But it's nothing that no one taught us, like I said. But as parents, we knew, and like I said, remember, I didn't have this. We knew that the family support was everything above anything else. Being there for him, making sure that he's okay. We still do it now. When he's back fit, we're at every game, and he knows, although we can't touch him this time, but he knows we're in the stadium, and he knows that we're there because of him. And I think that's just, for me, the basics. You do the basics well, everything else fits into play.
I will say with you on that. And obviously you've got mum as well, so I don't know mum's name, but in terms of support from, mum, tell us a bit about that, because we often hear, about the dads. And
she probably did, like I said to you, in the early stages, definitely did more than me, because I was still coaching, teaching, developing players, that when it came to training, I was still out, so to be fair, pack the kids in the car, off you go. We all know what it's like. You're coming whether you like it or not. Get in the car, off you go to training. And I think there's an element of it. Listen, I'm not going to say that Andros at times didn't say, like, what do you know? But she built her knowledge around being around the game all the time, 24/7. It's a thing where you can't switch off. They go to training 4 times a week. Yes, school environment is massively important. And just very similar to me, school didn't really mean much unless there was a ball at his feet. But she created the element that the love from the family, and so did his brothers and sisters, no one could ever question, and when I say love from the family, there's that behind closed doors love, and there's the outdoor elite parent love, which we didn't even know were elite parents at the time. So never criticizing him in front of she would develop relationships with other parents, but never criticizing her own child in front of them, never talking about anybody else's child, in front of them, and just there to go and watch whilst the other kids are running around, being mindful of where they are as well. But that support was everything that is required, getting him to the games, getting him back from the games, talking to him about his game if he wanted to talk about the game, creating relationships with other people that maybe I was a little bit offish and didn't want to when I was there.
She make up for it.
Definitely made up for it, that's for sure. It's understanding who he was on the football pitch as well. So, being able to understand what your child does whilst he's playing, and never really came from that big, strong footballing background, but definitely enhanced it and got to know the game. And then obviously the next bit is when he becomes a professional footballer, and you don't have to drive into games, but you want to be there to show that love and support. And then there's financial things that come into play as well. And I remember us having a conversation one day and just saying, look, you look after it. If you're worried about where the money's going or what it may be, you look after it. So whenever Andros does a lot of things outside of football, so whenever there's other stuff to be done, she's involved in that, a massive part of being involved in that. And during the early stages, that was important. Listen, we as a family, money's not flowed through our family. I know for a fact that my family never really had anything. So to be able to have a son, and then people say to me, "Oh, you're rich, aren't you?" I was like, my son plays in a sport that rewards healthily. Doesn't make me rich. If he wants to give us something or provide us with something, that's down to him and his generosity. And all we've done is to make sure that he knew the value of the pound coin, he knew the value of, notes, and he knew to look after things. And I'm just so proud that I don't have to question him on that. When you see your bank account increase, you could go off and do lavish things every minute of the day and then question it when you're finished playing your career. We don't have to worry about that, And a lot of that has been instilled by his mum. It's not been instilled by me because I never had money to throw it away. So, but it's been instilled into the value of it, what it means, what you can get for your pound coin, by the way, and how you should not. And when I say how you should spend it, not like, when you take £10 out, can you make sure you bring back £9.99p? It's more the fact that he knows what value there is in a purchase that he makes. Whether it's a house, whether it's a car, whether he's his own person, but everything gets signed off in a certain amount of ways, So massively important.
Something we're really interested in, did you, because we really want to support families and parents to support young people in this kind of inner game. We're talking about mental health, we're talking about well-being for the whole family. And we know some parents get very entangled in the journey. But did you as a family have to kind of consciously at any point really, did you consciously think, let's do something for this, let's support, did you have to talk about resilience, or is there anything that you consciously did, do you feel, around that?
Not consciously. And again, because the period of time, I think we're all learning. We have a son with a talent. We wanted to surround that talent with kind of not only positivity, but understanding everything that his talent could provide for him. If I say this, I wasn't aware that he had a gambling problem when he was younger. We wasn't aware. When you're on loan and you're in a hotel by yourself and you can do anything that you want to do, we wasn't aware of that gambling problem. And I kick myself, I'm sure what we all do, every single day about that, but also are grateful that he's come out of that to understand, like I just said, the value of money. He made his England debut trying to get England to a World Cup in 2014 and played two of the best games that I've ever seen him play, for his country. But I didn't know that he was suffering, the enormity of everything that he'd done at that point. And he did an interview and, he still didn't share this with us, was that when he got back to the hotel room and then he's, just dived on his bed and started crying. We didn't understand. There's always this element where they feel that they can deal with it themselves, but also they don't want to put too much pressure back onto the family. They don't want the family to then almost say, "Oh my God," and what, we need to get you support. We need to get. So he felt that he could manage it himself, and he was managing it, until he picked up the injury that put him out of the World Cup. So all of a sudden, the enormity of the World Cup landed on him whilst he's in a hotel room by himself. But then the injury that took him out of the World Cup is another stage of him having to manage what was going on mentally in his head, And he's only recently just spoken about that. And it was a revelation to us as well. I mean, if I'm going to say anything, he hit it unbelievably well. But having struggled with my own mental well-being, I know what he's doing because I've only just recently spoken about mine and don't want people to judge me. Do you know what I mean? Or to bear bad words on me. And when you're a professional footballer, it amplifies so much more, because if you're having a bad performance or, because you're in the public spotlight, if you're having a bad performance or if you're, not playing, or that's the reason for them to target you. So listen, he's had a career and continues to have a career in the Premier League. There's been such an emotional roller coaster, loads of it positive. But like I said, the downtimes, suspended for 4 months of betting, meaning missing the England under-21 Euro Championships. I know he'll regret it because it was an opportunity to represent England in a European tournament. And because of the betting, the thing that he couldn't overcome, it's denied him playing at the highest level of the game. And then the injury has denied him playing in the biggest tournament that any player could wish to play in. So yeah, there's been, and again, like I said to you, no one tells you as a parent how to deal with it. No one says, look, if your child, because of the demands of professional football, suffers X, experiences Y, or goes into Z, no one preempts you about that. So you have to go off of your own journey, your own knowledge, to believe that you're doing or saying the right things. And a lot of the time, it's letting them know that you're there, whilst actually not impressing on them too much, too overwhelmed, where they resent you. So I don't think there's any right or wrong in a situation like that. You'll only know when it happens. But some prep, some understanding, some past stories, some just acknowledgement of it to parents could be relayed so much better.
Absolutely. And like you said, Troy, just hearing the stories, I think, is powerful. Hearing other people's perspectives. I mean, my son's playing at youth level and doing well, and it is, as a parent, there is you get hyped up so much, and you think, okay, well, when things change, because at some point they will, right? How do you catch them? And it's difficult to prepare for. That's the environment. Things are going to happen. This roller coaster that you mentioned, but it is quite frightening as a parent to know what to do.
And I think that's one of the reasons why someone asked me the other day, and they've always asked me, why did you never coach in an academy? Why did you never? It's an unrealistic job. I only ever wanted to enable young people to smile, enjoy, experience football. And if your ability meant that someone would come and say, oh, can you come and join us? I'd be there for you, But to go into an academy where, and some people might shoot me down for this, where they're looking for the cream of the crop. So if they scout your son and bring him in, they're judging him against the top 3 players. Is he good enough to be in the top 3? They're not saying that in a couple of years' time his development might be. They're saying now Is he good enough to be in the top 3 or group of our players? If he's not, he's no good to us. How many players have been discarded and actually have come through a different route and play at the top levels because someone's made an instant judgment? And I couldn't coach in that environment. The 16, 18, 20 players in my care, I'd like to think that I've developed their abilities. And to be fair, a lot of them are still kind of talk to me now. I was at a funeral the other day and a lot of the players were there because it was one of the mums. And just to see them there 15 years later, I say not enjoying each other's company, but under obviously the circumstances that it was everything that I kind of wanted from my group. I didn't want them just to be players. I wanted them to be friends. I wanted them to be so much more than what they were. And those environments can be created at academy level, but the rewards are great, but the other side of it is not so great. And I think that's where players can lose touch or just not feel that the environment is right for them whilst they're seeing a friend who they've grown up with get everything, get all the rewards. And I think if people understand that actually this is still a game of jealousy as well, that then they may be better prepared to understand and support anybody, any child, whoever it may be, that sees their best friend getting all the plaudits whilst they struggle. Sorry.
Oh, there's so much in there. And even that kind of, football is a game of jealousy, that it is a very competitive game, and played at the top level, it is brutal. Even when you've, we talk about making it, what even is that? You could be sitting on the England bench. Put it like that. It doesn't matter if you're sitting on the Cockfosters bench or the England bench.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. To take jealousy wrong in the way that I'm explaining it. Do you know what I mean? I think because the game is so competitive, like we've all acknowledged, and you go from certain extremes to another extreme. I'm telling you now, jealousy comes into play. But you've seen it, and it's again, it's football that creates that. So how does football manage it? And I don't think it manages it very well. I know some great people in the environment, by the way. So I hope that when someone's listening, they're not just thinking, he's talking about me, because I've developed some of the most amazing relationships in the environment from a work capacity that's come into a friendship capacity, which enables me to be on point with what I'm saying, I suppose, and it's not just from one club, it's from a number of clubs. And there are some very, very caring people who are no longer in the game that became friends whilst I was in the game, that actually left the game because they felt the game didn't care enough about each and every single individual in its care. And if I've got 20 people coming into an environment, I want to say to those 20 people, I've given you the best of my knowledge to help you progress, to support you on this journey. But remember, we're asking 1 or 2 people to do that. And I think that's a tough old task. Tough old task.
Yeah, we agree. And so this is, this, comes back to sort of full circle. There's a lot of parents on that journey too, as involved, engaged. And how can they support their young people to stay? We hear a lot of those stories, like, I don't ever want to kick a ball again. They're so hurt and it's been something they've been so passionate about. And how can we help kind of keep that love of the game, despite what's happening, at the moment in those environments?
I would always ask parents to reflect on their own behaviours when they're at games. I can't name the 2 teams, but I went to watch a game. I don't watch a lot of academy football because there's no need for me. But I was supporting a player and a parent, and I didn't want them just to see me supporting them outside of football. So I went to watch them play because I just felt, it's a nice thing, isn't it? Troy supporting me, but he's hearing all these stories about me. I want to show him what I can do when I'm playing, And some of the stuff I heard when I was watching this game, wow, like, parents have got to reflect on what comes out of their mouths. They've got to reflect on the behaviour that they're showing on the touchline, and not make it all about the football club's fault. I've spoken quite a lot about what I think clubs could do better at, but there's a responsibility on the parents as well to try and rein it in, to be supportive, but look at how that support is coming across. There's a parent, I don't know, a couple of parents down the way from me. Oh, and even the grown son, do you know what I mean? It's said in an aggressive manner. So the child is now hearing, by the way, this was the mum, is hearing as much. So he tries to get stuck in. He gives a
Martin said that.
I used to say that. He was about 5. I think that was my phrase.
Was that your phrase? Get stuck in.
That was it. He was 5.
He was 5. It gives away a foul. It gives away a foul. But his mum is going, you know what I mean? And the child is pumped
We're the worst. The mum's the worst. We're the worst.
The child is pumped up and thinks he's done well. But over the other side, the coach is saying, stand up, stand up. So anyway, because he's now pumped up, remember, he's now confused. He's getting a message from the coach. He's getting a message from his parent. He's now confused. And the reason why he's confused is because they take a free kick, they develop, he then does another foul right on the edge of the box. And that's because he's still pumped from that parent, get stuck in. And he's still pumped. And by the way, he was so late on this tackle. I'm surprised that, well, the age, you're probably not going to get a red, but he was so late on this tackle. And he's presented an opportunity for them to obviously get a shot in on goal. So I think as parents, we've got to watch our own mannerisms, our behaviors, what comes out of our mouths, our body language at time. I talk to parents a lot about body language. You know, if your child has misplaced the pass, what's your body language like? You might not be saying anything, but what's your if they've missed a chance that you believe they should have scored? Remember, you believe they should have scored. If your son is in goal and happens to dive over the ball, it goes underneath his body and goes in. What's the parent reaction? Because the child will always look for the parents first, not the coach. They'll look for the parent reaction first. If it's a positive one, they're like, Mum or Dad's happy with what I've just done. If it's a negative one, it's like, I don't want to do that again. But now I'm thinking, what did I do? Oh no, I got it all wrong. You know, and I just think we can confuse our children so much by what we say, do, and act on the touchline. So they become influenced by the touchline rather than influence or the last message that the coach has said before they went out and crossed the white line. Maybe because I played no, it shouldn't be because I played the game, but the only times I ever spoke to Andros was when he was right close to the touchline. You know, and it'd either be go on, get at him again, God, he doesn't like it, or it would be it was very whispered. It was whispered, by the way. I didn't realize I didn't. But that's not to say that all these different things are not going through my mind at a time when he's on the ball, when he gives it away, or when he you know, fails to cross the ball, or when a shot goes over the bar, or when a goal. That doesn't mean. But for some reason, I've managed to control it within me. And I think that's another side of where parents need to take control of a situation, because you don't want your child walking off the pitch saying, I saw what you did when do you know what I mean? I saw what you, like, that's not nice, because then that negative perception then goes into their football. If I do that again, I wonder what reaction I'm going to get. You know, so we've got our children are very, very clever, by the way. And to be on a football pitch and to you know, play out the information from the coach, to understand where you need to be on the field of play, to understand what the opposition are doing, but then also to say, yeah, don't worry, I'm still watching, Mum, Dad, I'm watching you, don't worry about that, because you're waiting for a reaction, you know. So it's, again, a lot of the information that I like to provide to them, to make sure that they understand that they have a massive role to play whilst their child is playing the game on the field of play.
Absolutely. Well, we all, the number one fan club is about that. You know, who are we being? Number one, looking after number one as well, because there's something around, you know, this idea that, you know, if we're not feeling resourced and we're not at our best either, you know, if we're going to matches and we feel we've missed something and we're not eating properly and we're not, you know, we'll be like, oh, come all this way and look, you played rubbish, and it, you know, it becomes all of that as well, doesn't it? So
it does, and I think also just sort of having a more positive attitude towards others. You know, there's a lot on the sidelines about, you know, trialists coming in, and there's that person going to take my son's or my daughter's play. All those sorts of thought processes.
People are mean. People really mean about each other's kids and each other.
You know what? I didn't realize that. Andros did a section of the documentary with me, with his ex-teammates, Sam Cox and John Obika. And he spoke about being a trialist one day and being in different kit than everybody else, not feeling valued, wondering why everyone else could wear all, the club kit and he couldn't. That in itself is pressure. That in itself is saying to you, for you to get to that stage where you get a kit, you have to perform better than those that have got the kit. And I didn't realize, things will always pass us by. Do you know what I mean? Because we're focusing on another thing. But I didn't realize how much pressure that was. He went on tour. They forgot to give him a kit. He was then wearing his own kit until planning games. And what does that create in your own mindset? And actually, I didn't go on that tour, obviously, but if I did, I wouldn't have been best pleased. So again, you're going to be fighting for your son, aren't you? Why is he not wearing the same as everybody else? Why is he not? It's all those things that you have to develop and be able to manage so that you present yourself outwardly, in a way that everything's about protecting your child, isn't it? Everything is about making sure that the experience that they're going into is one that they can feel valued, they can express, they can challenge in a footballing context. And all you want to do is just be there to protect them, but also to empower them, to enable them to feel that they can be free on that football pitch in the same way, like you said, Kat, when they're on their grassroots pitch and they're in an environment that they feel comfortable. Because for anybody starting off on this academy journey, no matter what age it is, and remember, players get scouted at all different ages, the first thing they go into is a nervous situation, a nervous environment of trying to impress. And that's not easy.
And Troy, going by what you just said and sort of in these different environments and wanting to protect, when was the first time Andros went away on a loan? So when it was away from the family, and how was that for you as a family, kind of having to let go? When did he turn from a boy into a man?
It's different for, I'll say this, and he'd been away because he'd been away with England, and Spurs go away on these great tours. Do you know what I mean? So they'd been to Mexico, America, and all these kind of places. And I always think the tours set you up for being a professional footballer, being away from home. His first loan was 17 years of age. He'd played the night before for Spurs reserves against Chelsea. He had a really good game. Spurs reserves were littered with first-team players in this reserve game. Tom Huddleston, William Gallas, Gareth Bale, Roman Pavlichenko, and Andros on the left wing, Jamie O'Hara, Carl Walker.
Wow.
And the Yeovil manager is watching upstairs in stands. You didn't know this.
You not win a trophy. Anyway, carry on.
This is not for this pod. That is not for this.
All those names off. It's like,
I know.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And he played well that night. And the Yeovil boss is up in the stands. We didn't know this. He rings me the next day and just says, "Yeah, I'm off to Yeovil." I went, "Who?" He went, "The Yeovil manager was there last night. They want to take me and John on loan." So I said, "When are you going?" He went, "Tomorrow morning." Okay. So I start now typing Yeovil up. Never heard of the place before. Yeovil okay, that's 300 miles away. Okay, I'm still managing at this time, by the way. Okay, where are they in the league? Yeah, they're rock bottom of League One. Wow. Now I'm thinking.
Forgive me, because my geography.
Somerset. Yeah. Always say past the rocks. Stonehenge. That's it. I used to say past the rocks and things. But wow, like he's going to play professional football. But we almost didn't have time to dwell on it. So I'm just like, he's going to play professional football. His mum is like, "Well, where are you going to stay? Like, what you did? Who are you living with? What so she had the most important questions. Yeah, he's going to play professional football. You can quit what I'm doing and go and watch my son play men's football, And he went, the best thing for Andros was that he went with a teammate, John Obika. So they were staying in the same place. In matter of fact, I think they were staying together in the same room. It was a pub. It was a pub, by the way, which in a sense was the best thing because, but he didn't eat that food. No, it's in Yeovil. Believe you me, nothing happens. but he didn't eat burgers. You know, they were growing up and they'd been nurtured to understand their bodies. So they would go to, this is amazing, they'd go to the local supermarket, they'd buy pasta, and they bought themselves this little mini stove, which they weren't supposed to have, but they were saying how they're going to cook their own food. So they bought a mini stove. Every night they're cooking themselves the right foods, the rice, the right nourishment, you know, pasta and side dish. And my son's grown up. My son's grown up. So we, you know, we came, I think we went to the first game, which was at home against Swindon on the Saturday. John scored. Andros, they're singing his name already. These two 17-year-olds who trying to help this club come out of nowhere. And, you know, come on, let's go to where you're staying. I don't know what I had in my head about where he was staying. But when we got in this place, I was like, oh my, wow. I mean, they couldn't swing anything in there. But they were happy. And there were two young boys who, where are you cooking? We bought this thing here. I think you're supposed to have that in here, you know. The pots and pans are in the bar because the sink is not big enough. So they wash the pots and pans in. Listen, they're being creative.
Yeah.
They're being creative. You know, they're doing their washing. They've made their bed. My son has made his own bed. Like he's made his bed. They're doing everything that they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And when I finally got to have a relationship with the manager, and we still got a relationship now. And the thing that they say about the two boys going on loan was that they changed the culture from a senior player culture. So they used to have ice baths. Senior players come out from after the game, about 10, 15 minutes it took them. We're still waiting for Andros and John, and it's an hour later. So what are you doing? The boy, they're having an ice bath into, like this, that, and the other. All of a sudden, the senior players are coming out later and later and later because they're now buying into this ice bath stuff. Yeah, we'll do that as well. These two, they're running all over the place. So they actually created an environment where the senior players looked at them and thought, they're from Tottenham, they've got this amazing upbringing, they're doing ice baths and having extra rubs and, you know, doing a cool down. And so we were just like, our son has changed the attitude and mindset of players who've been playing for 20 odd years. And they survived with 10 games, they survived with one game to go. So they obviously have an impact. And the fans, which obviously can be very critical and they can be very supportive, but just wonderfully supportive of both of them, which then meant that, you know, they were being accepted immediately and they helped the club survive in the league, which was just amazing. So his first experience, the worry in terms of where he would stay, and listen, we didn't go for the, you know, staying away from home during the scholarship program either. You know, his mum was very adamant. Why? You know, he's not too far away from there. You know, we can do all the cooking. He doesn't need a place where, you know, he's very particular about where he stays. He doesn't need to do that. He can go to training and come home. Simple as that. They weren't happy, but what are they going to say? You know, so ultimately, he came home every day with Andros. You know, he was never finished. He was never finished at about 5, 6 o'clock. So it was a full day's work. And you want to come home to your surroundings where you can feel comfortable and you don't have to watch or be judged. And also the food is to your liking. And I say that because I will share the photograph by a young academy player of what a house parent put on his table. I can't describe, it looked like porridge, but it wasn't porridge, it was an eat. And I think clubs also have that responsibility to think about what food is, because they always talk about nutrition in the environment. You know, what you're eating, why you're eating it, what it does for you. And then you're going to get fed stupidness when you're outside. So I went down to Nando's at 8 o'clock and I'm thinking, and then showed me the picture and I was like, right, okay, I can understand that. Take that responsibility as well. And I think you're going to say this one. So culturally as well, understand what the lights are. And let's say the house parent can't make that kind of food, then find a suitable house parent that can.
Yeah,
and that was the players to feel good about what they're eating.
Yeah, it sounds to me that there is a kind of a lack of diversity of house parents, and I don't know what clubs can do to improve that, you know, or incentivize, you
That's not even for us to think about, though, is it? That's for the clubs to think about.
Yeah,
If you know that you've got a diverse playing staff, a lot of that diverse playing staff are going to come with their own, what they've grown up culturally, what they understand culturally, and what they want to eat culturally. And it's been good for them to get to this stage. So the clubs have to develop an understanding of what makes these young players tick. And food is a massive part of it.
It's a big part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead, Kat, you go.
No.
I was just saying that I'm sure you get a lot of parents that are always trying to, tap you up for a bit of advice as to, what can help them navigate the youth football journey. What are maybe like the top 3 questions that you get asked a lot?
I won't repeat the first one.
Okay.
Top 3 questions. One is not being able to change behaviours, trying to. So what mechanisms can, an individual put in place to stop being the vocalized parent or the parent that, applies more pressure on their child than what the industry does. Just the reaching out for support. Just this game doesn't support us enough. Where can I message you at different times? Can I, give you a scenario that's happened to my son and you feed me support back in? And then when they're older, what's the best age to get an agent? And a lot of people just feel that they because a lot of them don't have that awareness and understanding, is that getting an agent at the earliest point is the best thing to do. They would probably be the top 3. And listen, also, do you think I could go and talk to the academy manager? Do you know what I mean? So if your child is in a particular situation or an environment that's not conducive for their development, would it be okay? If you're going to knock on the door, boot the door down and then start ranting and raving, then it's a no. But if you're going to take a measured, kind of approach to, look, I think my son's, I remember, I'm waffling here a little bit, but no one knows your sons like we do, the parents. Remember, the coaches, the managers, the whatever, they think they know them, but they don't know them like you do. And I think there's a time where parents could say to clubs, this doesn't work for him, whatever that may be. And I don't want to, this doesn't work for him. It's nothing that he's ever done before. And we have to balance that with the fact that there's still this fear around being open in the environment because a child thinks that it's going to impact their development. If you go and tell them that, I don't like butter on my bread, and they butter my bread all the time, that's, and there is this thing where the parent always talks for the child doesn't talk. I say simple as that. It's never simple.
I still do that sometimes.
I mean, Troy, we could literally talk to you all day. I think we literally.
I think you have, haven't you?
I know. It's so good time.
We haven't even covered. We haven't really even covered your kick it out. So I hope you'll come back and tell us. We'll do a real thing on that. We'd love to really. But just hearing your experience, as a parent, I'm sure you can appreciate how valuable that's going to be, and the honesty that you brought to this, and what you shared, and. I can't tell you how helpful that's going to be to different parents, because these are young kids.
Yeah.
They're going to make mistakes. These are just kids. And like you say, it's honestly, I just think it's been brilliant. And we've enjoyed every minute of it talking to you today. If we could just ask you one little tiny thing just to end it. If we could take out a billboard and we could put it up at the end of every game for parents, I'm going to say, what would it say on it?
Wow. I have something in my head, something like, your footballer is a young person, is your child. And do you understand what I mean by that? Because a lot of the times I think parents stop thinking that they're a child. That's their child that you're talking to like that, by the way, when you're shouting at them across the field of play. They stop thinking that they're developing into a young person. And they just see them as a footballer. Identity is massive in this game. Identity is massive. Footballer is an extended part of who they are. The child, the young person should always come first. Should always come first. And I think if that is mentioned more in those environments as well, and like you said, on those billboards, when people look at it and go, I wonder what that's about. And then they look at it and they go, do you know what? I think that's a little bit about me. I identify in that. It'll be a much better place for parents to understand.
Brilliant.
Whilst I think that the game needs to change and embrace parents more and give parents the tools to go on this journey as well, parents also need to understand and identify their part that they're playing, and be able to change that as well.
Love it.
We love that. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I just thought that off the top of my head, by the way.
Well, by the way, we're going to get those billboards somehow. Well, I don't know. We're going to try. We've got you on here, haven't we, Troy?
Well, listen, if mine doesn't make it, I'll be ringing you up very quickly. Don't worry about that. I want my billboard.
Yours is going to make it. Thank you so much.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Look forward to having you again.
Yeah, if you want to talk about kick it out stuff, that's fine.
100%. But that needs its own. We need its own platform.
It needs its own energy. Yeah,
it does. It does. On our Real Sideline Experts series, which we have on the go. So.
Amazing.
Right.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me. Take care. See you soon. Lovely to meet you, Kat. Take care. Bye bye.